Welcome to another episode of The Second Coming. I'm your host, Jason Keaton, and I'm here with our minister, Brother T. Brother T, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jason. I'm excited to be back with you, bro. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. I'm here with my dog, Bodie. He's just kind of like chilling. If you get a glimpse of him or if he pops up, he's just kind of laying here listening to the message today.
Nice.
So my question today came from some readings and meditations and some channeled work from Jeshua. And it was talking about how the religions around the world really use a lot of guilt and fear to kind of control their communities and enforce their message. What I'd like to do, because I believe everybody that's in our community is transcended that or is enjoying spirituality because it breaks away from that fear and guilt. Would you mind taking me through some of the common lessons in the Bible or other religions where it's been misinterpreted from what Jesus really wanted? You know, I mean, the story was retold or twisted or manipulated, and some of his messages are just wrong now. Do you mind? It doesn't have to be all of them, obviously. We only have a 30-minute podcast that we're doing, but some of the major ones that I think Jesus really wants to clarify.
Okay, that's a good question. Let's call in a little guidance. Let's take a good deep breath. And as we turn to the heart space, we say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Mother, Father, God, thank you for being with us in this conversation as we are joined here in union and a relationship with love itself. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free. I am free. I am free. I am in the upper room. I am here. I have come. I am known. Behold, I make all things new. God is. God is. God is. I know that it's really unsettling for people because there's been so much conditioning, Jason, in our world, from organized religion, institutional religion, and there have been many who have, with good intention, really tried to do their best to be active and participating and doing the right things, doing things for other people, going out and doing outreach work and, helping people in whatever way they can, etc. But there have also been, just speaking for, Christian communities in particular, there have been, some very horrific times, when people were literally tortured if they didn't agree with the doctrine that was being taught. First and foremost, the big elephant in the room is a 3-letter word. It's called sin. And that has been horribly, twisted and confused and used to control people. It begins, with us being born in sin and identifying, these two children of God, Adam and Eve, right from the very creation story, the Genesis story. And last week you were talking about being naked. Well, they were naked, right? And maybe they still are. Maybe they're laying under the apple tree in the orchard in the Garden of Eden, having a dream of separation. In fact, in the Bible, it says that they drifted off to sleep, and never does it show or read anywhere in the Bible where they woke up. But sin is the big elephant in the room, and it's what's been used primarily to control people. So recently, and this is you'll find some of this content, in my new book. But I was told a long time ago and guided a long time ago that truth, the real truth, the truth that Jesus shared with his disciples, and even his disciples were quite confused. I mean, if it's hard for us to imagine our ignorance of humanity 2,000 years ago, but there was horrible oppression going on from the state, the Roman Empire, as an example. They were horribly oppressive. They were warring all the time. Life wasn't valued very much at all. Slavery was rampant in the world. These were dark ages. And Jesus came in those times to help to bring the light to that darkness. But even his disciples, who spent, honestly, only a short period of time with him. I can look back at the last 3 years, and it's like it went by in a flash. Once he became enlightened, and was baptized by John the Baptist, he was, it took him several weeks to assimilate what experience he was having, because what was happening, and he's done such remarkable work, helping us to begin to understand it now, what he went through. He wrote a book called Jesus, My Autobiography, through Helen Schachtman. I'd highly recommend it to people. If you want to feel more connected with Jesus, if you want to recognize him as your brother and as your way shower, he is definitely more approachable. If you would read his autobiography, because he shares his life with you there, that he was human. He was like you. He wasn't and didn't consider himself special, but he was having guidance at a very young age, 5, 6, 7 years old and so forth, that from non-physical entities that were communicating to him in his dreams. And sometimes they would appear kind of by his bedside as a young man. And by the time he was 12 years old, he's arguing with his Essene teachers, and he studied with the Essenes. And most of their work, the Essenes' work that they had done and developed, which was very enlightened, by the way, was pretty much destroyed 400 years after his death by the emperor at that time, the king, who just huge book burning that Hitler would have been proud of, and they tried to burn every religious, all the different materials from different religions, and there wasn't being a lot of stuff. I mean, the common man didn't read back then. The people didn't. In A Journey to the Unknown, Moses actually shared a little message, and he shared that. He said, the 10 Commandments are being scribed on a stone. He said, it's kind of ridiculous because nobody could read. They wouldn't have been able to see or understand read it anyway. He said, no. He said, and he shared his story. It's worth finding. I'm not going to tell you where it's at. You got to do the work. You got to do the work. You got to study. You got to read. You got to find it. But Jesus is sharing so much about his history and his story. Anyway, back to Jesus, My Autobiography. Jesus is telling us and showing us that when he became baptized, he's stumbling around in the woods for weeks. Because what was happening was he was becoming Christ. And now we know, and his disciples hadn't they weren't capable of grasping this. And I mean, how many among us are capable of grasping it now? I mean, literally. I'm struggling with it. I'm struggling to understand it. I desire to understand it. But having the beginning experiences, and this is a process, I'm beginning and becoming experience of being the expression of love in form, to be more of God in form. It's a radical transformation. And it's just as radical as shifting out of your sleeping self at night into this self today, right? It is a dimensional shift, and you see everything differently, almost instantly. It's miraculous. Miraculous, literally. It's a miracle to become Christ in form. Why would you think it would be otherwise? And so the sleeping self is not going to understand this self today, and this self today, this ego personality, is not, it can only imagine and pretend and try to make up what it must be like to be Christ. And we can honor Jesus for his willingness to share his story with us. But his disciples were only able to be with him for about 3 years. And then because we believe we're formed, we believe this is our reality, et cetera, they really, historically, we can see a little bit of their expectation was that he was going to come back and be the king of the planet, right? And all of this got blown out of proportion. And then the oppressive governments at the time had to get with the churches at the time and try to maintain control, because Jesus' message was so radical that the church thought it made a lot of sense to get with the government and crucify the man. Because why? Because he was being loving? No. Because he was threatening their message. He was threatening their capacity to control people and to prosper personally from the control that they had over people. Put them in the war field and let them die for your wealth and your power, right? Or torture them, ultimately, as the churches have done, some people at some time, to maintain power for the people that were in control, the head of the churches. We still see it today. It's still going on now, not with Christian theology necessarily, but Christian theology is still teaching sin as a reality and that we were born in sin. These are, and we can be offended by that, but we're not being in our right mind if we're being offended by anything. Honestly, truly. When you are expressing his love, there's nothing to be offended by, because all you're experiencing is God. And you see your brothers and sisters being confused and acting out from that confusion. But you can easily say, forgive them. They know not what they do. Spirit is not judging us for perceptions of sin and guilt and blame and judgment. Spirit is saying, wake up, wake up. It's not so hard. It's not hard. But it's required. Behold, I make all things new. By being aligned in union and relationship with your true self, we can put aside the questions that the ego has, because what we're experiencing is truth. We are the living truth. We are the agent of change. So we don't need to condemn the churches, and we don't need to fix the churches. Our work today is as individuals, knee to knee, handshake to handshake with our brothers and sisters, and just letting them know that we're not judging them, because we are representatives of the truth, that there is no sin. There is only love. There's only love. And we are that. So while our churches have made mistakes, who amongst us have not? Because we've been operating out of a mind that literally is insane. So when we look at that, we can say, they are innocent by reason of insanity. We don't need to judge it. And we don't really need to even revisit it. History no longer exists. The past no longer exists. We are being continuously conditioned and reconditioned and told that our existence is how to make the best of who we are today based on who we were. But that also is a lie, because you don't need to make yourself better. You are already perfect, neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it. You're at that point, and you must see yourself therefrom. And the only way to see yourself therefrom is to be that self now. Now. It's not a game. It's an illusion. It is a self-delusion. It's an experience of not knowing one's self and grasping and clinging at other ideas that have been given to us by others. The ego is so easily fooled. But once it believes something, it is so hard to change its perception of what it's been fooled of. And that is why it's important for us to be the ministers of change, to be the agents of change, and just to be loving and withhold judgment and allow our brothers and sisters to express their free will as they must and need to on their own personal journey. We are all crafting our own individual journeys. There's no room here for judgment of any kind whatsoever. Because once we become aligned in union and relationship with our true self, we become something else than the ego. We become what we truly are. The ego is just a temporary, illusory state of consciousness or perception. It's a misperception of self. But until somebody taps you on the shoulder and tells you that's what you're doing, how are you to know? You can't, because you're hoodwinked. You're in a silo. You're listening to your own thinking, believing your own thoughts, and crafting your own truth. But only the truth is true, Jason. Only the truth is true. You are as God created you to be. And returning to that realization takes effort, it takes work, and it takes time, lifetimes. But it's happening. The second coming is true. It is real. And it's been going on now since Jesus, the first coming, shared with us what we needed to know. He shared with his disciples what we needed to know. But it was, for lack of a better term, conditioned out of us by those in power. But those structures are beginning to be seen for what they are. They're beginning to fall apart because the darkness cannot exist when the light is turned on. And the light is being turned on. It's being turned on by you. It's being turned on by those. If you're listening to this conversation, it is your work. It's being turned on by you. You are bringing the light. And it's not to condemn your brothers and sisters for history. It is to let go of the past, because it's like last night's dream. It was just a temporary illusion, a self-construct of something that was never real to begin with. What is real is what God is. Here we are, right now, make no mistake, in the kingdom of heaven, making something else of it. But once we get that, once we begin to accept that truth, then we start to look, where are we? I'm in a place that is heaven in form. I am in the Garden of Eden. I am in the kingdom of heaven on earth. Always have been. But I have defined it as something else because I was told it was something else. But the truth is coming through now, and we are being told, and we are learning, and individually, one at a time, those that are ready are beginning to get it. My Isabel is running around all over the place. She likes the vibration. Can you feel it? I feel it. It's intimate. It's sensual. It's beautiful. The truth is true. Only the truth is true. God is. God is. God is.
I love that, Brother T. As a follow-up question, when we start realizing that we are spirit, we are godicals, we are unlimited beings, and our egoic small self is confronted with conflict or danger or disease or fear, we're conditioned to pray to God, and as God particles, as parts of the entire creation. How do we call on our ascended masters, whether it's Jesus or God, for guidance in our life? Because no longer can we say we're not part of the solution. Something outside of us isn't going to create the miracle. How do we make the miracles happen ourselves, or how do we allow the miracles to happen? Or is that not even what we're supposed to be doing?
How do you wake up from your dream at night? You're sound asleep. You're having dreams. What did that sleeping self do to wake up?
It just woke up on its own.
Well, it didn't do a damn thing.
True.
Did it?
Not really.
Well, how did it wake? Okay, so the part of where you're being when you woke up, the self that woke up is the self that did something.
Sure.
It looked at its state of consciousness and said, "Wait a minute, I'm awake. I'm awake. That's not real." And you wake up. So your question is a formulary around the idea that the sleeping self has to be what wakes up. It does the work. The sleeping self does the work of waking up. No, this is symbolic. Okay, these are it's symbols of symbols, right? It's metaphoric, and I'm using it because you experience it every damn day, right? Every day, every blessed day. Your ego, personality self, is what wakes up. It sees the sleeping self, and suddenly your body starts to recover because it's rested, and the energy, and it's such a wonderful, symbology and metaphor. What happens is the sun rises, the light comes, and the body's energy shifts literally. When the sun comes up, our body literally, the chemistry of our body literally changes because the light has come. Right? So, did the sleeping self do the work? No. Did the ego do the work? Not really. The light is doing the work. You see the metaphor?
Yeah.
So, we can talk about it. We can recognize, hallelujah, that there's way more to us and of us than what the ego would have us believe and want us to believe and ever even question, who am I? It never wants you to question that. But once you do, the light comes. And so what's going on is that light, which is our true self, Christ consciousness, is doing the work, and it's working with the soul, because the soul is ultimately what will override, because the soul is the self that's choosing to give all of its attention to the egoic construct, to give its awareness to the thoughts of the egoic mind. And so when we turn away from that mind, get thee behind me, Now I'm in the gap. Because the egoic mind is going to keep you in the past, and it skips over the gap and takes you right into the future. And so you're thinking either about the future or about the past. The present, you miss it. You completely miss the present moment because your thinking mind, and we've shared this here, God did not create you to be a thinker, but yet you think you're a thinker. You think, oh, these are my thoughts. I'm a thinker. No, that's your egoic mind. And what's it thinking about? It's thinking about the past or it's thinking about the future. What can you do? Tell it to sit down and shut up. Get thee behind me. That's as hard as it ever gets. In the gap, I'm in this space of now. I am in the holy instant. Is an eternal now self moment where I can be in union and relationship with my true self. And so I say, are you there? And the answer comes. I feel it wash over me. I'm in the gap. I'm in the upper room. I'm not thinking. I can hear those thoughts. They're back there, but I'm not giving them any attention. I'm in union and relationship with the voice of love. It's a different voice. It's a completely different energy. Guess what? There's no fear here. There's intimacy here. There's knowing. There's certainty that I am what God created me to be. And I can begin to settle into it. But I have to be in it before I can begin to settle into it. I have to practice being in the gap. I only need to sit down or do whatever I'm doing by returning to this gap, this now moment, this present self now in whatever I'm doing. It just helps me to do it when I first start, number one, realize that I can do it or it's possible. And then I practice getting there. And it's best for me when I started was to put in some earplugs and turn off all the lights. And so I couldn't hear anything, see anything. And I could be in the gap, present and listening and denying my thinking self by being aware of it and literally being the observer of it, the thinking self. And that practice of being the observer and that practice of being present allowed me to discover an access point where I suddenly had and was able to recognize a thought that I recognized really for the first time in my life that it wasn't my thought. In other words, it wasn't an ego, which I thought I was. Suddenly I was no longer deluded by that perception. And I was having an aha, oh my goodness experience of a different self, like waking up from the sleeping self at night to this self, right? I was in the gap, and the light of understanding, the light of truth, the light and the voice of certainty, I was finally able to hear it. I'd been the reason I wasn't hearing it was always my adolescent soul giving all of its awareness to the thinking mind. And it was keeping me really busy with thoughts of judgment and opinions and things I had to do. I had to fix myself. I had to be a better me. I had to go do this. I had to take care of the body. I gotta be, I gotta be sure that I'm not feeding myself the wrong food. Oh my God, I'm vulnerable. My body could take me out. I had to watch everything I'm doing. I got to go work out. I got to be with the right people. I got to do the right things. I'm working on me. But that's not even who I am. I was working on a false self. I was sleepwalking, thinking I was awake. But then the light comes. God is. God is. God is.
Thank you, Brother T. thank you for the reminder of being present, and that's all there is. And I thank every one of you that were spending your present moment with us. And thank you for being part of this community. Brother T, is there anything else you'd like to say this week to us other than we love you, Brother T?
That was what I was going to say, Jason. I love you. I do love you. And I love those that are part of our community. I send out an email every week, and the first line is, "You are dearly loved," because it's true. And it's in that knowing, that acceptance of that fact, that truth, that reality, that our mind can begin to awaken from a self-deception, a misperception that we're not bodies. We are as God created us to be. And we are dearly loved. And we get to bring the light to the world. We are a part of the second coming. There's no one left to crucify. There never was. All is well.
Well, with that, I'm just going to say we will see you next week on another episode of The Second Coming.
And I'm going to say, God bless you. Thank you for sticking around with us and hanging out with us today on this episode. Share it with somebody if you care to, if you're brave enough to. We really tackle some pretty difficult conversations here, and I just want to applaud your persistence in hanging out with us and sticking with us, and hopefully you'll find an opportunity today to bless someone, even to just withhold some judgment. What a miracle that would be. God bless you. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.